What's up everybody, I'm HoopsandHipHop. So when it comes to Pokemon Sword and Shield, everyone has high expectations for the game. Not only is this the first time we've ever seen a Pokemon game on a home console, but it's also the very first fully HD Pokemon experience outside of Let's Go for the main series, and because of that, everyone has a lot of things they want to see out of this game, and everyone is hopeful that this can be one of, if not the greatest Pokemon game that we've ever had. This type of thought process definitely includes myself as well, because I definitely have my own set of high expectations and hopes for this game. However, it is important when it comes to these things to kind of temper your expectations and not let them get too out of control, and that's why I wanted to talk today about 5 things that I really want to see in Pokemon Sword and Shield that are just simply most likely to not happen. Usually with these type of videos, people will talk about things they really want to see or things they speculate could legitimately happen, but today I thought I would throw a twist into that type of topic and talk about things I really want to see, things I think could legitimately happen in terms of them not being too much of a stretch, but at the same time things I just don't think are very likely at all for a number of reasons that I will get into throughout the video. So that's pretty much the gist of it, so without any further ado, why don't we go ahead and just get into 5 things I really want to see in Sword and Shield that most likely won't happen. Okay, why don't we start things off by getting one of the more obvious things out of the way, and that would be my obligatory top hope every time we get a new generation of Pokemon, and that would of course be having a second region to explore in the game, or in the case of Sword and Shield, being able to explore Kalos. Now, like I said, this hope is not something new to Pokemon Sword and Shield. Ever since we first got the ability to explore 2 regions in Gold and Silver, I have literally hoped for this feature to return in every new generation of Pokemon, but obviously that has not happened. However, what makes Pokemon Sword and Shield a little bit more interesting in this regard is the fact that the region of Galar is most likely right next to the region of Kalos, and this is the first time pretty much since Johto to Kanto that we've had one region that geographically is sitting right next to another, making the idea of exploring 2 regions legitimately possible. However, as much as I really want to see this in the game, I just don't think it's going to happen for a number of different reasons. From a logic point of view, people have brought up the fact that this game is fully 3D, and so it would be much harder to implement or render a second whole region in complete 3D, as opposed to doing it in the earlier games where it was all 2D sprite-based and everything didn't have a 3D model, there were much less polygons. So doing it in a game like this that already has a much bigger scope to begin with is just going to make the idea of a second region that much harder to implement. The other reason why I don't think this is going to happen though, and it kind of coincides with the reason I just mentioned, is simply because I don't think Game Freak is ambitious enough to try and pull this sort of thing off. As much as I really hate to say it, Game Freak has not given me any reason whatsoever to believe that they are going to go the extra mile for this game. Yeah, I know the games are going to be great, yeah, I know there's going to be some awesome features in them, and yes, I know that Game Freak does a great job every time around in making good Pokemon games. But when it comes to really grabbing the bull by the horns and really trying to take Pokemon to the next level as a franchise, I just have no reason to believe that Game Freak has the ambition to really try to attempt to do that. Next up is something that fans have wanted to see for a while, or I should say fans have wanted to see return for a while, and that would be the implementation of a difficulty setting. Difficulty settings are pretty dang standard when it comes to video games as a whole, but when it comes to Pokemon, they are a very rare sight to see. We have only ever seen something like this happen in one game, and that was in Pokemon Black and White 2, but even then, the difficulty setting of Pokemon Black and White 2 was implemented terribly, because in order to even access it, you first had to beat the game completely, which kinda defeated the purpose of it, and then depending on which version of the game you had, you then got access to either easy mode or hard mode. But if you did not have the one you wanted on your version of the game, you then had to transfer it to someone else's version in order to gain access to it, which is a complete dumpster fire of a way to implement something that is so simple in video games. That bad example aside, however, introducing a difficulty setting would be an incredibly easy thing to do just because of how standard it is within the video game industry. On top of that, many people have been wanting a harder Pokemon game for a while now because Pokemon games have tended to be really easy and have gotten increasingly easier, it seems like, over the years. So fans of the series who are more experienced and have been playing the games for a while now really want to see a game that challenges them. And the best way to satisfy both sides of this equation, i.e. the younger players who have not played as much Pokemon and the older players who are experienced and are ready for a challenge, is of course a difficulty setting where you can go easier or more difficult depending on your personal level of experience within the game. However, much like the previous pick, I just don't think this is very likely to happen in Sword and Shield at all, for the simple fact that Game Freak has not given me any reason to believe that they would actually go ahead and introduce this kind of thing into the Pokemon game. This is because there are a number of features that Pokemon fans have been dying to see in Pokemon games much like this one for a while now, and none of them are really out of the realm of possibility, but it just doesn't seem like Game Freak wants to listen to us, and it's just the sort of thing that would make Pokemon so much better and is so simple to do that Game Freak doesn't seem like they want to do. It just seems like they want to follow the beat of their own drum, and for that reason, because of that track record, I just don't think it's very likely to see in these upcoming games. And speaking of things that would greatly improve the experience of the game if they were actually implemented, is something that I would just lose my crap over if it was actually put into Sword and Shield, and that would be voice acting. Now, I know that the topic of voice acting being introduced into a franchise that typically doesn't feature it like Pokemon is always a touchy subject, and ultimately it comes down to your personal taste on whether or not you like it, but I think the introduction of some voice acting into the Pokemon franchise, now that we're on a home console into the Nintendo Switch, would greatly improve the overall experience of the game and would heighten the immersion of your Pokemon adventure exponentially. This is because, at least for me, I rate games based on how fun they are to play and how immersed I get into the game itself. Whether that's the story that's really interesting and gets me really invested, or it's the world that I just feel like I'm a part of after playing a couple hours, or it's the fact that I just get so lost into the game itself that 5-6 hours of my time can go by without me even really noticing it. And voice acting is one of these things that can really heighten your immersion into the story of a game and into the world of the game as a whole, because when you start interacting with different characters, if they actually have a voice of their own that can be tied to them, it really feels like the game and the world itself is that much more alive. And obviously for a franchise like Pokemon, this is something that would be very easy to do. You obviously know you're going to have cutscenes in the game, you know you are going to have human characters talking, so it's just a matter of giving a voice to that character and recording some dialogue, but once again, I just don't think it's gonna happen, even though I really want it to. Much like the first pick as well, I just don't have any evidence to believe that Game Freak is going to be ambitious enough with this title to really take that extra step and do something like include voice acting in their game. It's one of those things that they can get away with not doing and create a great game without doing, and in their history they have proven that that is the road that they prefer to go down instead of taking a little bit extra time, a little bit extra effort to try and do something that could potentially help the quality of their games tremendously. Now, I don't want to come off as saying that I think Game Freak is lazy or uninspired or anything like that, because obviously I know that they create great games, I know that they work very hard on them, it just seems like they don't want to push themselves past that limit and that standard that they have set for themselves up to this point, which is why I can't believe that they would do something like this until I actually see it for myself. Now, this next one is a very, very simple one because it's one that has been done in Pokemon games already, and it's been done a couple of times pretty recently, and that would be the reintroduction of the Soaring feature from ORAS, or at the very least, the Flying Pokemon feature from Pokemon Let's Go. In Pokemon Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire, the amazing Soaring feature was introduced, which allowed you to fly on either a Latios or a Latios high above the Hoenn region and essentially see the entire Hoenn region from the sky. From there, you could fly to any city or town you wanted in a more exploration type fashion, but you could also fly to non-city and town locations as well, such as a route, for instance. This feature pretty much speaks for itself in terms of how amazing it is, because being able to actually fly where you want to go and getting to see the entire region you're exploring underneath you, as opposed to just being taken there by a simple cutscene, is obviously way better from a gameplay perspective, it's way better from an immersion perspective, and even if you did it the way that Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee did it, where you got to simply rise above the route or the town that you were on and fly in the sky that way at a lower level, but you still got to legitimately fly around, is something that needs to be a staple in Pokemon games going forward. And the reason why I don't think it's going to happen in Sword and Shield, because those two features are features that are a part of Game Freak's frustrating philosophy in that they stay exclusive to those games in order to give you a reason to go back and play those games, therefore giving them value 10-20 years down the road, even after several other Pokemon games have released since then. It's very similar to the voice acting point, where it just increases your overall immersion into the game, and not only that, it does a ton to add to the gameplay of the game as well, and just makes it a more fun game to play. But because Game Freak has this stubborn philosophy on keeping these kinds of amazing things exclusive to one game, it is very, very likely that we are not going to see anything like it in Pokemon Sword and Shield. And finally, the last thing I'm going to talk about today that I really want to see in Sword and Shield that we most likely won't is a quest log type of feature that allows you to keep track of a lot of different side quests with a lot of different side quests to do throughout the game. As you might be aware, Pokemon is an RPG, and a pretty standard feature of many different RPGs is having a sort of quest log which allows you to keep track of all of the different quests and objectives that you have to do throughout the game. It'll allow you to keep track of all of the main story quests you have done or still need to do, and then it'll also keep track of all of the different side quests that you have encountered that you have completed or still need to complete throughout the game. And this is something that I believe Pokemon could benefit greatly from without a whole lot of effort on Game Freak's part. Number one, it's never a bad thing to have a sort of checklist that you can go through throughout the game if you need to be reminded of what you're supposed to be doing at any given point in time. But number two, with the introduction of a quest log a lot of times also comes a lot of side quests that you are able to do throughout the game, and this is what I really want to see for Pokemon Sword and Shield. Number one, we have had side quests within Pokemon, but we really haven't had meaty type of side quests, if you will, which are basically a story in and of themselves. Those are the type of things I want to see, not just simple fetch quests, not just simple mini games, but legit stories that stand alongside the main story that you can get as invested in as you are in the main story itself. However, even though I think this would be a great addition to Pokemon Sword and Shield, I just don't think it's the type of thing that Game Freak wants in a Pokemon game. As I said earlier, Pokemon is an RPG franchise, but it's always kind of been an entry-level RPG franchise, and I feel like Game Freak is nervous about making Pokemon too hardcore for their younger audience, and I feel like this is something that they would consider too hardcore for the younger demographic that is just starting to get into the Pokemon franchise and just starting to get into gaming in general as well. It's something that I think Pokemon Sword and Shield could benefit immensely from, and overall would make it a better game without too much more effort on the development side of things, but it just does not seem like the type of thing that Game Freak would put into their game. Once again, it just doesn't seem like they want to take that extra step forward in the continued evolution of the Pokemon franchise, and until they prove me wrong, I unfortunately have to expect that this is something that will not happen in Pokemon Sword and Shield. And there we have it, everybody. Now, I hope this didn't put too much of a damper on your Pokemon Sword and Shield hype. I just thought it was an interesting side of the Pokemon Sword and Shield conversation to have, so I figured I would go ahead and share it with you guys too. If you guys did enjoy the video though, be sure to give it a like, and let me know down in the comments below what you want to see in the game, even if you think it's something that Game Freak won't do. And hey, maybe Game Freak will surprise us, maybe they will end up going that extra mile and we will see one or two of these things in the game. game, which would certainly make for an amazing surprise. If you guys are new to the channel as well though, be sure to subscribe for more new Pokemon content every Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, including plenty more Pokemon Sword and Shield videos as we get more new information. And finally, if you like what you see here and you want to support the channel further, consider following me on Spotify and checking out my Pokemon remixes. It's the easiest way to directly support the channel outside of just watching videos, and it really does do an immensely important job in terms of allowing me to continue to bring videos to you guys the way I'm doing right now, which I want to do for as long as I possibly can. With all of that being said though, I will be back on Thursday for another video, so be sure to hit that notification bell so you can be notified as soon as it goes live. And with all that being said, you know I love you guys, and I will smell you guys later.